my greatest passion is mandalas, mandalas and exploring consciousness. And like the most powerful technique I've ever come across for exploring consciousness is holotropic breathwork. And a holotropic perspective has influenced my entire life, most especially giving birth to this work with mandalas. So like one of the key principles that's drawn me to mandala work is the principle of like moving towards wholeness. So like when we start making mandalas in our workshops, we start in the center of the circle, and the whole process is like a journey from the center out to the circumference of the circle, and it's a metaphor really for moving towards wholeness. And I suppose my question to you is, do you think that type of work, that type of focused attention for 3 hours is a good way to work with the holotropic perspective?
Well, for a lot of reasons I think so. Okay, let's see. First of all, just in terms of just the holotropic perspective to begin with, we do a process for integration with mandalas at the end. So people will have their breathwork experience and they will get in touch with their inner healer and things will come through. And in order to help them integrate, we believe in the process of like sort of preparation, session, and integration. And so we'll do this thing that sort of comes from the Jungian tradition, which we call mandala drawing, which will start with a circle, which is very, very similar to what you're doing in your entire process, where people will work within that and allow their inner healer then to just express itself through crayons or watercolors or whatever to help them integrate. And sometimes they'll know exactly what they're putting on the paper, and sometimes it'll be like something that they won't realize till 6 months later, but it'll become like a meditative tool. So we use the mandalas anyway in that respect. And so that right there brings one thread of a connection. But certainly when you were first talking, I just have to say this, the idea of going from the center and expressing outward with the mandala, the way that you're doing it, the first thing that came to my mind, and this was just right at that moment, was like a kaleidoscope where you start with a point, a bindu, like in the Hindu tradition, and you go, and it explodes outward. And in a sense, this is, I think it's scientific, it's biological, it's astronomical, it's of the nature of what in the scientific perspective is the Big Bang, which corresponds in like Kashmir Shaivism to like the Spanda principle, which is the explosion of consciousness out of like a point into like total creation. So a mandala is perfect for that. And so I think you've chosen an incredible medium through which to do this. First of all, it's artistic, and to me, one of the great expressions of creativity is artistry, is beauty. I love the Sufi thing, toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty. And so you're working in an artistic medium, which is great in the first place because this opens people beyond their minds, which is what breathwork does. It helps take people beyond their intellect. And so working first of all with art is beautiful. And then the whole principle of the meditative process, I'm loving that, where you begin, that no one is telling you what to do, and so it totally follows the inner healer, which is that as they begin, they're not going to know what they're going to be creating, and they're working with something that is like an archetypal, has archetypal truth already. Do you see what I'm saying? And so then they begin the journey from the point outward in their mandala, not knowing what's going to come. And there's absolutely no way that it wouldn't be meditative. And there's absolutely no way that it wouldn't bring up material from the unconscious. You see, and I'm excited to hear what people go through, whether they are getting immediate understandings or whether, like it's a meditative process, just like breath work, where sometimes people immediately know what's happening. Other times, it takes weeks or months to really get the full impact. And I can imagine with a mandala, it will be the same way. And I'm aware that you say at the end it's very much Tibetan, where you
let it go.
You let it go.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, I'm cheating. I'm thinking I'd like to, if I was doing what, I'd like to take a picture of it because I'd like to have it too, so I could meditate on it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying.
Well, I do that too sometimes. I mean, we give people the option in our workshops.
Yeah.
So it's like, but if you want to be a purist, it's about impermanence and letting it go. But the other, I mean, the core principle of holotropic that has really driven my entire passion for it is the principle of the inner healer, you know. And you speak so brilliantly about this, you know. And I'd love to just ask you, like, how does the inner healer work? Like, what is this inner healing mechanism? You know. Like you know, I know that contents from the unconscious come up, and you know, in mandala work, that's definitely the case. You know, you sit down and you bring your attention to a piece of creative work. You know, with these geometric shapes, stuff is going to come up. You know, now where does the inner healer come in there, and how does the inner healer work?
Well, okay, if I was to know that, I'd be God. But okay, you've heard me say this, and I know we feel the same way about it. To me, it's a total mystery. But the truth is in the manifestation of it, which is, the first time I was told when I first did holotropic breathwork, that the healing was within me was radical, because I was trained in life, and I think most of us are, to go to experts outside ourselves and to believe that it's in books, or some teacher is going to tell you, whether it's in science or medicine or education or anthropology, whatever. And so I was always looking outside myself, and so then I was told about the inner healer, but it made sense. It resonated when I heard it. And the truth was, it sounded really empowering, because I felt like what I realized later was that I was completely disempowering myself by not realizing that it all came from within me. So it took the breath, the first time I did it, you see, to realize, oh my God, there really is this intrinsic native truth and wholeness within me that the only name we could think of would be like an inner healing mechanism, as Stan Groff would call it, or the inner healer, but it's called the soul, the higher self, or whatever, and so many the Atman, or whatever it is in mystical traditions, and everybody's got a name for it, but nobody knows what it is. But the highest truth, I believe, of any transformation is that it comes from within us, and that if we open to it, if we allow it to emerge, if we create a space the way you have with the mandalas, if you just create the intention for this to happen, you see, and you give people, and you honor people, and you give them the power, and you're not directing them, which is, I know that's your strategy, the same we do in the breath work, then if we open to it and we allow our awareness to just witness what comes up, then truth will emerge, and it'll either be, as I say, like an instant insight. We'll get it, you see, aha kind of experience, or it'll be perhaps a mystery that we'll have to meditate with for a while. But it becomes then an absolute life strategy. It is ultimately the most empowering thing I've ever seen. So any strategy, such as the mandala that the way you're doing this now, I believe is like, I can't think of a better way, a more meditative. It seems like you're combining several different disciplines in doing this. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am, but it's sort of like not intentional almost. You know, it's just like, I mean, this is the most cutting edge therapy I've ever come across on the planet.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with mandalas. So it just, you know, I mean, it was kind of a simple no-brainer, you know, but now looking back, it's like, oh yeah, Tibetan Buddhism and holotropic breathwork and the Gross lineage and blah, blah, blah. But it's not really been my strategy. It's just like, I am, and, you know, it's like, it's just, I love the inner healer and the way you talk about it, you know, and it's like, I think sometimes in our modern world, you know, very often people forget that there is a power higher than the sort of ego self, you know, and it's just like, how would you recommend people then let go of that ego self and hand it over? Is that what you do? You just hand it over to the higher, the inner healer?
I believe, first of all, I talk a lot about it in this work with this thing called this dynamic between willingness, and grace. All right, and I believe that human beings are possessed with a huge power, which is the willingness to, it's the ability to have intention for something. But in my own experience, I have to be truthful, is that, and I've had many awakenings and upgrades in my awareness and consciousness over the years, and in every single one of them, the experience was of grace. It was something that happened to me and not something that I did. I mean, I can till the soil of my being. I can be willing for these things to happen, but it's nothing. But when the experience of transformation happens on whatever level, for me, it has always been an experience of grace, which is And that opens me then to a mystery beyond just my conscious self, my ability to do. And because I believe that most of us human beings live in what I call a false self. It's a contraction. We take that for our reality. It creates most of our pain. And I believe that transformation, one way to describe it, would be the gradual sort of letting go of this false self and the emergence of an innate sort of open-hearted wisdom, which really is brought to us then by the inner healing power, and for me is an experience of grace. So, you can set the intention with the mandala, and you can then set the intention with breath work, and then but no one can create the experience. So I can imagine, I have not done your work, but I can imagine that by doing it, you see, its insights will come, and the aha experience would be that they realize that something deep and not just magical, but just mysterious is working from within them that they can learn to trust.
Yeah, it's like something happens then. It's like almost something else comes in on top of what you're willing to happen, That's it. It's like being surprised by transformation, It's like that you can't control it. It's like we have to give up control to let it happen. We have to drop into another place in our psyche. Surrender.
Yeah. Well, surrender is a big word, like a lot of people have trouble with it.
Yeah.
And I can understand about the horizontal surrender, but I believe that surrender is something that we do upward within ourselves to something higher within ourselves, And again, surrender is not an experience you can make happen.
It's
just
I like
happen.
what you say about never surrendering to anything in the horizontal world, meaning that like we don't surrender to, what is it like?
Well, I say, never surrender to anything outside ourselves, like other people or organizations, institutions, ideas, systems, any of these things. We are taught to do this. We give our power away in that way. We submit in some kind of way, and we are forced to submit by abuse and all kinds of issues to things outside ourselves. So when people hear the word surrender, they sometimes are taken aback by it and they resist it. But when I share with them that there is a true surrender, which is that only vertically within ourselves is surrender a beautiful thing, and that is that we can offer up whatever constriction we have to something larger within ourselves. It's almost like that, and that's a beautiful way to look at it.